The other day while driving in the car, I said something to my son that he couldn't hear. He leaned closer in his seat and quickly replied, "What?" I gently corrected him and said, "You need to say, 'Excuse me.'" At first, I wondered where this little streak of bad manners had come from. But later that day, as I was speaking to him, I realized it came from me. Our children have this beautiful way of holding up a mirror to us, reminding us to check our own words and our own manners at home. Courtesy isn't just about good manners, it's a kind of beauty that fills a home with warmth. Yet, so often, wives, like myself included, overlook this very thing that makes courtesy powerful, and without it, all our efforts can easily fall flat. If you're new here, my name is Julie, and I help Christian wives who feel emotionally weary in their marriages and motherhood to find spiritual and emotional freedom through practical steps so they can become joyful and free even if their circumstances don't change. If you need this encouragement, I'd love for you to press that like and subscribe button to join this community. There are a few things that I want to share with you today about courtesy in the home, and I want you to stick with me until the end because the very last key point ties everything together. Without it, the rest will lose its meaning. The first key is how we speak to our children. So often, as wives, we're intentional about how we speak to our husbands. We remind ourselves to show respect, to use gentle words, to build them up rather than tear them down. But when it comes to our children, it's easy to slip into a different pattern. I noticed this in myself recently. At the start of this video, I shared how I corrected my son for saying "what" instead of "excuse me," but then I realized later that I often do the same thing. If I can't hear him, I'll respond with a quick "what," but with my husband, I naturally say "excuse me." It's quite interesting how our habits change depending on who we're speaking to. And it's not that we're being disrespectful on purpose or that we're choosing to value one over the other. It's just that we tend to speak differently to children. But the reality remains, they are learning how to speak by listening to us. Courtesy is best taught by example, more than any lecture or correction. It's what we model day in and day out that leaves the deepest imprints on their little hearts. If I want my child to use kind, respectful, and thoughtful words, then I need to let him hear those same words from me. When we make the effort to use respectful courtesy language with our children, it creates a gentle, more peaceful rhythm in our home. I want to challenge you here. Begin treating your conversations with your children as just as important as your conversations with your husband. Show them the same courtesy, the same thoughtfulness in your words, the same patience in your tone. Be intentional about it and think of it in this way. Your home is the training ground for their future relationships. The way you speak to them will echo into how they one day speak to their spouse, their friends, and even their own children. This is why it's worth slowing down, catching ourselves and asking, am I speaking to my children in the way I want them to speak to me and to others? When we begin to model courtesy consistently, it becomes part of the atmosphere of the home. It creates warmth and love, and that is the kind of legacy worth leaving. Since shifting my mindset towards biblical femininity, the kind that honors God, my life has been filled with such peace and joy. Walking in the will of God brings a kind of joy that nothing in the world can compare it to. It has become my desire to help otherwise align with God's design for womanhood to overcome weariness and thrive as a biblical wife, mother, and homemaker. If this speaks to you, I would love to invite you to my free webinar that will help you throw off burdens that you're unknowingly carrying, find peace, and even strengthen your marriage. It's completely free, and you can find the link in the description down below. Now, the second key point I want to focus on is having courtesy at home. Those simple but powerful words like thank you and please. Now, I know these sound obvious. They're the very first words we teach our children when they're small. But after years of marriage, in the middle of busy routines, we can so easily forget them ourselves. Think about it. How often did we say thank you to our husbands in the early days of marriage? We're more mindful. But as the years go by and routines take over, it's easy to slip into the mindset that these things are just normal. They're expected. Take work, for example. Every day, your husband goes to work to provide for the family. And yes, it is his responsibility as a husband and father, but it's also still his choice. He chooses to keep showing up even on the hard days. Have you thanked him for it? Have you ever said something like, "Thank you for working so hard for our family"? If not, then this is your next challenge, which is a challenge for today. Thank your husband today for going to work. And if you've done it, I want you to comment below and say, "I said thank you." The impact of that one sentence might surprise you. Gratitude breathes life back into places that have grown weary. And what about at home? Maybe your husband mows the lawn, takes out the trash, fixes things that break around the house. These are things he's supposed to do, right? But pause and just think for a moment. How many times do you actually thank him after he has done them? It's easy to overlook, but even when something is a responsibility, it's still a choice to do it. And when we recognize that choice with a simple thank you, it changes the tone in our home. Instead of our husbands feeling taken for granted, they feel appreciated and even honored. The same goes for please, and I had to laugh at myself recently because while we're teaching our son to say please, I notice how often I forget to say it myself. Instead of making a request, I'll sometimes slip into giving a command. Do this, bring that, can you get that? And yes, life is busy and sometimes things need to get done quickly, but think about the difference when we add that one little word, please. It softens us, it shows gratitude, it shifts our words from sounding like an order to sounding like an invitation. It communicates respect, not just expectation. And the beautiful part is, when we as a wife bring please and a thank you into our homes, we set a standard. Our children hear it. They learn that gratitude and courtesy aren't just manners for school or for strangers. They're the normal way for our family communication. And I know this may seem small, but it's actually transformational. It's a way of saying, I value your efforts and I don't take you for granted. And now we come to the last key point, the one that really brings everything together. Because you can say all the right words, but if this part is left unchecked, it can do everything else. And that is our tone and body language. We don't just speak with words. In fact, research shows that much of our communication comes through our tone of voice and our nonverbal cues, our posture, our expressions, even the energy we carry when we speak. You can say please or thank you, but depending on your tone, it can land completely differently. A sharp, rushed thank you can sound more like an obligation than genuine gratitude. But when you pause, soften your voice, smile, and truly mean it, those same words become life-giving. The same goes for the word what. We talked about this earlier. It can sound rude or dismissive if we bark it out, but if we soften our tone, add gentleness, and maybe even a smile, a what feels more like an invitation than a demand. It's not just about the word itself, it's about the tone too. And the hard part is our families often see the version of us that the outside world doesn't. At work, at church, or even in the grocery store, we're careful with our tone. But at home, with the people we love most, we sometimes let the guard down. We let stress, tiredness, or frustration creep into our voice, and without even realizing it, our tone can wound the very people we want to nurture. That's why it's so important to be mindful of our delivery. Courtesy is not just in the words, it's in the way we say them. It's choosing a gentle tone instead of a harsh one. It's smiling instead of sighing. These are small things, but they make all the difference. Here's something that helps me. Before I respond, especially when I'm tired or frustrated, I try to take a small pause, a breath. That pause gives me just enough space to choose my tone instead of letting my emotions choose it for me. And let's not forget body language. If I thank my husband for taking out the trash, but say it with crossed arms and a weary sigh, the message is lost. But if I look at him, smile, and show genuine appreciation, he feels honored. The same applies with our children. Kneeling down to their level, making eye contact, using a gentle touch on the shoulder, these little shifts communicate love in ways that words alone never can. This is why tonality and body language matter so much. Words are important, yes, but when they're wrapped in warmth, respect, and kindness, they have the power to transform the atmosphere of the home. Don't aim for perfection. None of us get this right all the time. I certainly don't. But start noticing, start paying attention to the way your voice sounds, the way your face looks, the way your posture feels when you interact with your husband and children. You'll begin to see small changes, and those small changes will ripple out in powerful ways. Because at the end of the day, courtesy is more than manners. It's about cultivating an atmosphere of love. And when our words, our tone, and our body language all align, they create a home that truly reflects beauty, warmth, and peace. Thank you for watching the video. Again, I would love to invite you to my free webinar that will help you throw off burdens that you are unknowingly carrying, find peace, and even strengthen your marriage as you align with God's role for being a biblical wife, mother, and homemaker. It's completely free, and you can find the link in the description down below. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe if you haven't, and share it with another wife who might need this encouragement today. I also want to suggest you watch this next video that I picked for you, as it perfectly ties into this one. May you have a blessed day.